Hi everyone, I hope you are doing well. I hope you're safe at home. And for today's lesson, I want to talk about using context clues when trying to figure out the vocabulary in a passage. So first off, I want to break down context and clues. The definition of context is trying to clarify the meaning of a word based off of what comes before it, so the preceding words or phrases, and what comes after it, so the following words or phrases. When we look at clues, the definition is just having pieces of evidence or information. So if we combine these two, we're talking about using pieces of evidence or information that are either before the word or after the word that we are trying to define and figuring out what exactly the definition is. What does that word exactly mean? And so that's why we have context clues. Now with vocabulary, if we can remember the acronym IDEAS, that will help us a lot in figuring out what context clues are important, because a lot of times in passages we have all this information and we can't cipher through it. But with vocabulary, IDEAS is going to help us a lot. Now what does IDEAS stand for? They stand for 5 ways you can figure out a definition based off of context clues. So as you can see, we have inference, definition, example, antonyms, and synonyms. So the first one, inference. That's where you infer the meaning. You come up with the meaning based off of words around the word that we are trying to define. So if you look at this first example, it says, the plants are extant today in areas as widely scattered as South America, Africa, Australia, and Malaysia. Now, this is the word we're trying to define. So in order to infer, we're looking at words around this. Well, in the first sentence, today is a big clue. When we're talking about today, we're talking about the present. We're talking about right now. The second clue we have is widely scattered in all of these countries. And that lets us know that this is more modern. And then the third clue that we have is live. Live is in present tense. So again, like today, it says, hey, it's happening right now. So when we look at our definitions below, we can see, oh, still existing fits into that idea of it's happening today, it's happening right now. And so for this answer, we would put still existing by using inference as the context clues to figure out that definition. Now the next one is definition. And that is exactly how it sounds. The passage actually defines the word for us, and this is probably the easiest one because then we can say, oh, there's the definition, well, that's the answer. So if we look at this passage, it says, thus while one may be horrified by the ravages of developmental disorder or disease, one may sometimes see them as creative too. For if they destroy particular paths, particular ways of doing things, and I'm going to go ahead and stop there. So in this case, with definition, it actually defines the word or defines developmental disorder in this case. And it defines it right here. For if they destroy. Destroy. That lets us know that that's what disorder or disease does. So when this says horrified by the ravages of development disorder, we're basically saying that it destroys. So when we go and look at our options here, we know that it's going to be destructive actions for our answer because of this definition that we have up here. Now the next one we have is an example, and that means they give examples of the word, and then based off of those examples we can figure out the definition. So here's a passage. I'm going to start right here. She thinks I have a power that she doesn't have, and this brings out her envy and bad humor. She thinks that the world of dreams is an extra life that some of us have, and again I'm going to stop there. So we have to define humor. And how we do that is look at the examples that this passage gives. Well, the first one it gives is up here, irritation. So her failures fill her with irritation. This lets us know that this is how she's feeling, right? She feels irritated. And then the next example we have is this brings out her envy. Again, another feeling. So when we think about the examples of bad humor, we have irritation and envy, and those are both feelings. So if we look at the example choices down here, we have to say, okay, what is another term for feelings, how you're feeling? And another term could be mood. So in this case, we know our answer is going to be mood because of these examples that they give of bad humor. Now the next one is antonym. Antonym is we give an opposite of the word that we're trying to figure out. So here's our passage, and we have to figure out arid. So in this case, the first notice we have is wet tropical or semi-tropical habitats. Now we can't get there just by simply looking at this opposite. There are other context clues that we have to use in order to figure that out. And the next context clues is this. So the species can not only survive, but thrive. But is a big indicator that we're looking for that antonym, that we're looking for the opposite. So we have wet tropical, but arid. So that lets us know, oh, wet is opposite of arid. Well, what's the opposite of wet? Another word for arid would be dry. So as we look at our choices, we can say, oh, here's my answer. Dry is the answer for this choice. And then we have the last one, which is synonyms. So synonyms is where they give words that mean the same thing as our word that we need to define. So here's an example. Their first task is to determine vocation. So we're figuring out what vocation is. Excuse me. If we keep reading, we have a child needs to ask what he is going to do with his life. Well, if we look at this, we have 3 tasks. Their first task is a child needs to ask them what they are going to do with his life. Going to do with his life is a synonym for vocation. They mean the same thing. So they're saying what the first task is right here, and then they're repeating that task right here in this sentence. So they're giving a synonym for the previous sentence, and more specifically, the word vocation. So if we look at what they're going to do with his life, we can say, oh, going to do, they're going to figure out their career or their job in the future or what they want to do as a profession. So when we look down here at our choices, we can say, oh, it's career because it has to do with the future and their life. And so we would select D. Now what I want you to do is I want you to try figuring out the definition of this term or phrase on your own. So at this point, you can pause the video. Alright, so the answer for this rattle off is going to be quickly recite, or recite quickly, talking about the 12 months. Now, just a reminder, to sum it all up, if you can remember the acronym IDEAS for vocabulary context clues, that will help you figure out the definition of vocabulary words when you're taking the test. You do have to go back to the context. You do have to go back to the text and figure it out from there. I hope you all have a great day, and I look forward to seeing you, and I hope you come back to school soon.